Good day to you. Welcome to A Foreigner in the Philippines. I'm just looking in my little book of quotations. Gosh, this is quite an inspirational book. Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. O. It's actually 1001 Smartest Things Ever Said, but they're basically quotes from clever people. And this one was Ray Bradbury. Ray Bradbury, who you might remember or you might know as the creator of great stories in science fiction. He was, well, I guess he was the guru. He was the father. He was the father of science fiction stories in many ways. Asimov obviously was a very big writer and creator. Asimov, I remember reading Asimov when I could barely understand what was being said, but I kept some of those things that he talked about, and they've stayed with me. And it's funny, sometimes as a youngster you take in certain things and you don't know why they're staying with you, but you remember them. And I remember things that Asimov said, especially about his robots and how the survival of robots would be governed by the prime directive. A robot had to be programmed with the will to survive for himself, but he also had to place above that the survival of a human being. In other words, a robot would never be allowed to consider that his life was more valuable than a human being. And of course there was that famous story about the dark side of the moon. There is a point on the moon, or was thought to be a point on the moon at that time, that Asimov wrote this story, where a robot could indeed cross the line from the dark side into the light. And there was this astronaut that was lying injured in the light side of the moon, where there was light, obviously, and the dark side. And obviously it was thought then that one side would be baking hot and the other side would not. And the robot would be in the dark side, on the dark side of the line, and would be cool and able to operate. And then he would go out to the aid of the stricken astronaut, and he would then rescue that stricken astronaut and bring him from that heat of being in the glaring sun, and he would bring him back into the dark side where he could be helped. Well, the robot made his way out there, but before he could reach the astronaut, the temperature, he would be actually being boiled alive. So he would have to retreat back to the dark side. Once he was back to the dark side, his prime directive would take over, and he would have to place the survival of himself above the survival of a human being. And then he would march out again, and then so these two directives of protecting his own survival and yet going to the aid of a human being came into conflict, and he would go backwards and forwards, back, light, dark, light, dark. It was a never-ending dilemma. So we're presented with these dilemmas. Now, one of the dilemmas, finally got to it, finally you say, what the point of the video is. Well, the point of the video is, I just looked at Ray Bradbury's quote, and he says, "If you enjoy living, it is not difficult to keep the sense of wonder." Now, I have talked about this, about how important it is when you come out to the Philippines to keep your sense of wonder, though I didn't say it in those particular terms. And nearly got hijacked again there. Would you get out of there?
Let's go, darling.
Yes, we are, but I am in the middle. Have you noticed that I'm in the middle of a video?
Okay.
Okay. So, where was I? One sight of that woman and I can't think straight. So you need to be able to keep your sense of wonder, because there are things that I see on a daily basis when I go out that I think, wow. The other day when we were going out, in fact, I think a couple of days ago, we got to a point where it was a difficult, narrow part, and there is a huge carabao, and on his back is one of the carabao kids, a tiny little boy who looks about 6 years old, and he is in charge of that enormous horned creature, and he guides it to one side. It obeys his commands. He knows how to control the beast, and he takes it to one side and he holds it steady while we slowly, quietly, as quiet as possible, we pass him by in the truck. And he knows us very well, we know him very well. He's one of the carabao kids. So this is a wonder to me. Often we used to see 2 or maybe 3 of the carabao kids. There's Geraldine is the eldest, and then there are 3 younger boys all going down like this. Okay, to the smallest one, which was the one that we saw a couple of days ago. And these are wonders to me. I never take that for granted. I don't go, oh God, another carabao. I don't do that. I work at keeping my sense of wonder. I look at some of the things that we see along the way. When it's harvest time, I see by the side of the road, I see the threshing machines where the workers come from the field and they bring sacks of the rice, and they bring it up there and it's put through the thresher, and the thresher throws out the grass and it keeps the rice, and the rice is bagged and so on. And so the harvest is realized, and then various people, farmers, will come along and they'll load the grass free of charge from the side of the road and put it in their trucks or in sacks, and they'll use it for mulch, for fertilizer. They'll mix it with carabao poop, and it will make excellent fertilizer when it's chopped. So I look at these things and I think that they are terrific. When I go to get my shoes repaired, it's a tiny, tiny little shed that would not be big enough in the US to be a garden shed. It doesn't have a door, it has a window at the front, and the window has a little ledge which the man sits behind amid mostly ankle deep in boots and shoes, and apparently he knows everyone, because I never get a strange pair of boots back when I've had them repaired, and he sits there and he fixes shoes and boots and whatever you put in there. And I guess when he goes home at night, he jumps out of the window at the front of this tiny little garden shed and he goes home, and he works in there 7-8 hours a day, even Sunday. An occasional holiday he won't be there, but he's always there. I see him every time I pass on the road. I say this as with some sense of wonder. So because of that, I keep the experience of living in this foreign culture alive and fresh in my mind. And this is not some kind of, I don't know, the New Age, little New Age exercise of being a tree hugger or whatever they do when they hug trees, I don't know. It's a survival for the life that you have chosen. It's the way of keeping it alive. But then, shouldn't this be applicable? Shouldn't you apply this to whatever life you're living? I mean, for instance, some people dream of living in California. Remember when we used to have all of those songs by the Beach Boys of how dreamy it was in Southern California, about the girls in California, about all kinds of things, the beach. We looked at Muscle Beach, we saw Arnold Schwarzenegger training at Muscle Beach down in Santa Monica, and I even went there when I was in California, and I saw all of those enormous guys all lifting enormous weights and posing and pouncing and puffing themselves up, and that was their life, and it was wonderful to be able to go and stand on the other side of the fence and see it, and I enjoyed that, and that was part of the wonder of being in California. And if you come from a dirt floor nipa hut in the Philippines, maybe that's your sense of wonder that you should be keeping alive. And the real challenge in life generally, wherever you live, wherever you go to, whatever life you decide is a better one that you're living right now, you need to keep it alive. Because the thing about there, as opposed to here, is that there very quickly becomes here if you allow it to. So if you're not happy with here, don't think that going there, anywhere, is going to be the answer to your problems. First of all, you need to be able on a daily basis to get out of bed and be very grateful that you have been able to get out of bed, first of all. And when you go outside, you really need to look at what it is that you have that, I don't know, as an exercise, perhaps think of somebody else. Think of how somebody that's in prison would love to be getting out of your bed and walking out of your door and looking at whatever it is that you're looking at. Boy, if the guy is in prison, he would think that you are in paradise. And no need to be quite so extreme. You can put it that someone who would just love to be in a warm climate is where you are. If they're in the north, there are places in Russia, in St. Petersburg for instance, where it will freeze the liquid that's in your eyes. Our friend Dwayne is in such a place now. He's in the Antarctic, and he says that if you leave your ungloved hand out in the open, outside of the complex, you would lose it. It would have frostbite and would have to be taken off. That's how cold it is there. Boy, when I am feeling a little bit sweaty right now, but if I think about that, I think I'm in paradise. So the important thing is to maintain your sense of wonder. And my wife has just hit me again. I wish I was in a paradise where I wasn't being hit. What do you want, my dear?
No, I'm shaving my...
Well, we don't want to know. We want the secrets of women to remain a secret. I don't want to see you shaving your armpits, do I? Now what?
Let's go, because it's good. I don't want
and
to.
And that's my razor. Why are you using my razor
to
shave your armpits?
That's what husband and wife did, sharing.
No, they do. You can have your very own razor. This is a sense of logic that I can't get over. Now, why don't you use your own razor?
I don't know. I think you use it and then you didn't put it back.
Ah, I've got it. It's my fault again, yes?
Yeah.
It's always my fault. So, maintain your sense of wonder.
Yeah, and then...
Come on. I don't want to kiss your armpits, but whatever.
Let's go.
This has been a foreigner in the Philippines.
Please like,
Thanks
comment, and subscribe, and give us a thumbs up. We're now in 11,674 subscriber.
Nearly 12,000.
Yeah,
wow.
Thank you for all who subscribed to our channel.
So by the end of this month, we will be at 12,000.
Yeah, so thank you.
So may I remind you, there are some other important, serious, this has been a trivial little video, hasn't it? I know. But there are some others, especially about the OFWs, that we're really hoping will be shared among other Filipinos who are considering going abroad. And the risks are great. Of course we're not saying don't do anything. It's not for us to judge who should do what with their lives. But be careful. Look at what the risks are, and that should tell you how careful you should be. There are people out there who will do terrible things and not care about it at all. So, share those videos in particular. Thank you for looking in, and bye for now.